This is the fifth video in our series of balancing equations where we are following the law of conservation of mass. In this particular equation that we're going to solve, we have a word equation. We have zinc sulfide reacts with oxygen to form zinc oxide and sulfur dioxide. So the first thing we need to do is go from a written name formula to chemical formulas. And the way we're going to do this is we are going to first take a look at that first element in our first compound and find it on the periodic table. Zinc. Zinc is right here in group 12. It is a transition element and it is a metal. And if we find sulfur, sulfur is over here. Oops. It is in group 16. It is a nonmetal. And the group 16 elements will form an anion. So we've got a metal and a nonmetal. We know it's an ionic compound. That group 16 element is going to form, because it needs two more, it will form a -2 ion. Zinc is one of those transition elements, but we know from our naming compounds that it always forms a +2 ion. So we can write out our zinc always forms a +2, sulfur forms a -2. They combine in a 1-to-1 ratio to zero out the charges. The next one is oxygen. It is simply an element, so I'm going to write O. But I'm not done, because oxygen is one of those 7 special. It always, if it's alone, is a diatomic element. So we have our reactants written out. Over here, we know, let's go back to our periodic table. We know zinc forms a +2 cation. We know it's a metal. And if we look over here, oxygen is in the same group as sulfur, right above it. So it is a nonmetal, and it forms a -2 anion. All right. Get my pen back. So we have oxygen forms a -2. It is also a 1-to-1 ratio. So it will combine 1 ion to 1 ion. Finally, we have sulfur with dioxide. Well, we know sulfur is a nonmetal. We know oxygen is a nonmetal. Nonmetal bonded to nonmetal is a covalent compound, which is why we see this prefix. There is no prefix in front of sulfur, which means that there is only one atom of sulfur. The prefix di means 2, so we're going to have 2 atoms of oxygen. So we have written out our balanced equation. Our chemical equation. Now we need to balance it. All right, and we're going to follow the same process we did in previous videos. We are going to separate our reactants from our products and remind ourselves that we can only change the coefficients, not the subscripts. We will write out all the different elements that we have in the same order on both sides and go ahead and count atoms. On this side we have 1 zinc, we have 1 sulfur, we have 2 oxygen. On this side we have 1 zinc, we have 1 sulfur, and we have 1 + 2, 3 oxygen. Alright, this is one of those instances where I have oxygen in 2 different spots on one side to result in an odd number. And I have it in just 1 spot on this side with an even number. I need to get this side so that it is an even number, which means that I need to change the coefficient in front of this odd number of oxygens. The lowest coefficient I can add is 2, which will change this to 2. Now I have 2 oxygen over here, 2 here, for a total of 4. Alright, now I have even numbers on both sides of oxygen. But I've changed the number of zinc atoms. So I'm going to change the number of zinc atoms over here by adding the coefficient 2. And when I do that, I will change this number to 2, and I will change sulfur to 2. Now I need to fix sulfur on this side. I have 2 over here. I need 1 on the product side. So I will put the coefficient 2 in front of sulfur dioxide. And when I do that, I change not only sulfur but oxygen. When I change this, I have 2 times 2, 4 oxygen here, and 2 times 1, 2 here. So 4 plus 2 gives me 6 oxygen. So now I can come back over here and change the oxygen on this side. To go from 2 oxygen to 6, I will add the coefficient 3. 3 times 2 is 6, and I am done. Go back and check the work. I have 2 zinc, 2 zinc, 2 sulfur, 2 sulfur, 6 oxygen, 6 oxygen. I am balanced.